Hello and welcome to Babalu B-Sides, the show where we pull back the curtain on the creative process with the folks who brought this audio drama to life. Babalu follows the story of Louisa, a writer who discovers dozens of cassette tapes left behind by her late mother, Sherry. As Louisa listens to her mother's innermost thoughts and reflections, she embarks on an emotional journey to understand the woman she never knew. But the deeper she digs, the more questions arise about her mother's mysterious past. In case it isn't already evident, major Season 1 spoilers ahead, so if you haven't already finished Season 1, you've been warned. My name is Jackie Rae Aubel, and I'm thrilled to be joined today by Babalu's sound designer, editor, and mixer, Charles Moody, director, Katharine Chen Lerner, and series creator, Kimberly Truong. Kim, first of all, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to dive into Babalu. As a listener of the series, I completely inhaled it. I could not wait for the subsequent episodes to come out after first listening to the pilot. And I'm not the only one who thinks that. As of this recording, Babalu has been featured by Apple Podcasts, securing a top 3 spot in the fiction and drama section of the platform. And it's also been selected as an iHeart podcast staff pick. Dude, how does it feel to have this project be recognized by the podcasting community?
Honestly, totally unexpected. Like, it feels unreal. Like, it was one of those things where when we set out, we knew that this is like what you see here is the team. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is not $1 million production by like a Q Code Media or something like that. I am also the marketing, chief marketing officer. I'm also the PR consultant. I got a hint that Apple Podcasts were going to feature us because they sent an email saying, hey, we need you to send us another image. And I was like, oh my God, it's happening. And then it happened. And it was a slow trickle. It came out. I want to say the first spotting of it was in the UK. And then next thing I know, we hit Canada with a feature because I saw now more Canadian listeners tuning in. And then I was like, oh my God, is the US coming too now? And then the next week it was followed by the US and I was just blown away. And then the iHeart podcast staff pick, that again, I saw an uptick from iHeart and I was like, oh my goodness, now we're on iHeart. And it's just been, I think it's a true testament to the work that we all did. And I think the work speaks for itself, I hope. And I'm just so honored that they gave us the opportunity to showcase our little indie series.
I mean, it is really incredible. And I actually want to give this question to Kat and to Charles as well. How does it feel to have Babalu get this recognition? I mean, there's a million podcasts out there. And the fact that you guys were able to cut through the noise on this indie production with an indie budget. I mean, what a testament to the work that you guys did. Kat, why don't you go first? How's it feel?
Yeah, I mean, it feels incredible. Really, it comes down to the story. I think the story is really unique, and I think a lot of people can relate to it. And I'm just so excited that people can listen to Kim's work. So, yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, Charles, what about you?
Yeah, I agree. It's super exciting. When I first read the script for the pilot, it pulled me in instantly. And so I'm not that surprised that people are pretty into it. After us just finishing the pilot, I think I was already bugging Kim about, okay, so when are we going to get the rest of the first season? I want to read those scripts.
Just add to this also as well, this conversation that something just popped into my head. I was talking recently to a guy, I won't name names, but a head of a podcasting network. And one of the things he said was, and it really hit me, like I knew this like in the, like maybe subconsciously, but he was like, he point blank said, you guys should be so proud that not only did you get a feature from Apple Podcasts, he's like, I have a studio and I'm lucky if I get 2. And that's after asking, like, and knowing somebody there. You didn't know anybody there, and you're doing a show about Asian Americans and mental health. Like a fiction podcast about that. He's like, that's incredible. Fiction podcasts almost never get these spots. And the fact that we did it about a more marginalized group, and maybe even a stigmatized group in a lot of ways was crazy.
Dude, it is incredible. And I know that you whipped up the story in no time. You wrote it in like over like a weekend, right? So actually, for the listeners at home who have been enthralled with this series as I am, can you tell us how Babalu began, when you started actually writing this story, when you first got the concept? I want to hear about how this first started.
The long story short is that I came to Los Angeles, Los Angeles about 10 years ago, wanting to be like a writer, like a lot of people here. And I quickly discovered that it is very competitive. It's a very hard industry here. I knew I still wanted to create stories. I was very inspired by a lot of people in my life who were like, I'm taking the reins. I'm going to make my own thing. I'm going to create my own sketch videos. I'm going to, I don't know, post to TikTok. I'm going to, at the time, post to Vine or whatever, if you remember that.
Oh, R.I.P. Vine.
R.I.P. Vine. And I was just so inspired by them. And I'm like, why can't I do that? And so I just started dabbling. My friend Ruby Merez, who plays Raina in Babalu, she and I were doing sketch comedy together. We started producing our own sketch videos. You and I were on a sketch team together. We were producing our own sketch videos on our team. And during the pandemic, things slowed down. Ruby and I had our last live sketch show at Second City Hollywood.
I was there. Yes. That was the last thing we did before the pandemic.
And then literally the city of Los Angeles closed down like 2 days later.
Yep.
I somehow got sucked into podcast, and I don't remember how, but I remember being served Homecoming, which is a really beautiful piece of like fiction audio storytelling. And it's like an all-star cast: Catherine Keener, Oscar Isaac, David Schwimmer, Amy Sedaris. It's so good. I listened to the first few minutes and I was like, oh my God, I can see the whole thing in my head. It's literally, like they say, movies for your ears. And there was no narrator. It was all like you were like a fly on the wall in these scenes. And I was like, I want to do that. So Babalu was kind of a reverse engineer of, I wanted to do something. I wanted to make something. I wanted to be in control of my own creative. But what can I do with like little to no money? What could I do with the money that I could raise on my own through my network, through my friends, my family? Both of my parents have passed. My dad passed when I was 27 years old. My mom passed when I was 22. So I lost them both in my 20s. And my dad used to call me every day, like every day, even though we didn't live together. Obviously, I was an adult at that point. If we didn't catch each other on the phone, he'd leave me like a goofy voicemail. And I was that person who saved like all my voicemails. I still have like voicemails of my little brother and my little sister on my phone. And I was like, you know what? I think I was missing my dad, missing my parents. I at one point, my mom was not good about voicemails, but I think at one point she did leave me one by mistake, I think. And I went to go back into my voicemails to find them so I could just reminisce and hear their voice. And they were gone. Oh. I still don't know what happened to them because I still have, again, I have a voicemail from my 4-year-old brother at the time. I still have that for some reason, but I don't have the ones from my mom or my dad. And I was like, I really would love to explore an idea around this, the idea of getting to know your parents and their own voice. And so it just like snowballed from there in regards to like, what were my dad and my mom like in their 20s before I showed up? Or when I was like really young and they were just learning how to become a parent. I wanted to explore that, and that's how Sherry was developed, because I wanted to explore an Asian American mother, somewhat taken after my mom, not fully, but the idea of a woman just trying to figure it out on her own, because my mother was single when she had me. My biological father was not in my life. In fact, the guy that I mentioned right now as my dad, he's not my actual biological dad, but I, of course, call him my father. So I wanted to explore, like, what could my mom's life have looked like when I was very young. I think, like, there's also something very tragic about mental health and how we approach it, especially amongst different communities, Asian American community being one of them. And that's ultimately how Babalu came about, and I just obviously kept picking at it and adding to it and adding meat to the bone and having conversations with like my Asian American friends, my just friends in general, about everything from mental health to like therapy to just existing in this world today. That's a very long story short. Well, very long story long about how Babalu came to be.
Well, what an incredible story, because these cassette tapes are so foundational to the actual story, right? Like, when did you start thinking of the cassette tapes as a device for storytelling? Because it sounds like you were inspired by your parents' voicemails. When did it click that you were like, ooh, what if I had this across generation kind of almost... You remember that stupid movie with Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock where they like the lake house? Yeah, in the mailbox. It's like that, but a little less cheesy. Like, when did the cassette tapes, when did you find out in your mind, this is going to be the vehicle by which I tell this story?
So admittedly, like, I think as a storyteller, I kind of sometimes like to reverse engineer stuff. So like I said, I was like, oh, I want to create something. I want it to be within my own control. And, oh, I'm inspired by Homecoming. Could I do an audio fiction series? And then you just start leaning into like what works for that medium, right? We know it's audio only. And I think there's something, I remember being a kid of the 90s. I'm sure we all do. You remember hit and rewind. You remember sitting at the radio waiting for your favorite song to come on so you could immediately hit record and like create your own mixtape. And I think there's something kind of eerie about the sound of a cassette tape. Mm-hmm. It's just something, and I know we'll talk about this more with Charles, but like there's something so, I don't know, you don't get that feeling with a CD. I don't think you maybe even get that with a record. There's something specific about the cassette tape, and especially being played from like a lo-fi, like small tape recorder. There's something so raw that I thought, oh, that's just going to be a very beautiful device to get to know this woman. So for me, I was like, okay, she has these audio journals. It is the 80s. The timing worked out perfectly. Like, cassette tapes were a thing. People were buying, you know, their tape recorders and doing fun stuff with it. And I wanted that to be the way that Louisa got to know her mother. Mm-hmm. I just think that there is something so like raw about someone sitting by themselves in their, you know, home and just hitting record and la-di-da, talking to the mic, what happened to me, and like following their thought process. I just became obsessed with that idea. So ultimately that's how we landed on cassette tapes.
You know, as you were talking, I'm going to give you a break to talk. You've done such a good job so far, but how voice notes have even gotten so popular now. And even how I think as a society, some people are reverting back to physical media because it kind of has that rawness to it. Yeah. And I wonder if Babalu accidentally kind of capitalized on this moment.
It's so funny that you say that, because like now I'm like a voice memo bitch. I'll be like sending people like voice memos, like I'm like, all right, girl, like, because I also think that, again, I think about the joy I have listening to if you left me a voicemail, it's probably on my phone. Mm-hmm. Like, no, seriously, I probably have not deleted it. It's probably on my phone because I just want it. I don't know. I just want to keep it just in case, because life is crazy and you never know what could happen. And I love that now all the kids are doing voice memos. My little sister, she is 20, and for the last X amount of years, her and my brother, they're into FaceTime. Yeah, they want to FaceTime you. They want to see you. So I hope that there is this kind of like back to like human interaction. Even through technology, there's still human interaction. But yeah, it is kind of crazy that people are more voice memo. In fact, that was like one of the things with season 1. I was like, oh shoot, I should have done more voice memos, because I feel like it was like taking off, but I was like, oh well, whatever, it's too late now. But season two, yeah, there you go. We'll have a lot of voice memos.
Kat,
all voice memos.
Oh yes.
When Kim was talking about how she first developed Babalu, she mentioned how she started working with her friends and talking about stuff. Talk to me about what brought you on board with Babalu. What got you really excited about the story and made you say, I want to work with you on this?
We just talked about this last night because I don't remember.
We have bad memory.
Well, it's a minute, right? We're recording this, not to timestamp this, so we're recording this in early 2026, and you started this concept in 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I got just a script from Kim in a very casual way of like, hey, we're friends. Can you read this? What do you think? Especially being with the Asian American experience. And, you know, I just thought it was such an incredible story. I was really impressed with how unique and carefully handled the mental health aspect was, because I really do believe that, especially for Asian American culture, mental health is very much glazed over and kind of like stuffed in a closet, and that's what causes so much pain and struggle a lot of the times within our culture. So just even saying it out loud and labeling it and letting people know that they're not alone was really huge for me. Just knowing myself and others that, you know, struggle with mental health. I knew that Kim was going into a production of it, even just like reading it, going into, you know, table reads, Zoom reads. I know there was a time that I auditioned for it, which was fun. And then Kim was kind of like, you know, going a different way.
I don't recall saying that.
You know, going a different way, but, you know, would you still like to be involved? And I was like, or actually maybe not, I don't know. I remember being like, okay, that's totally fine that you're going a different way, but I really want to get involved in any way whatsoever. And I feel like for the first recording of the pilot, because Charles was there, I feel like I don't even know if I was called director. I think I was called producer.
Oh, it's just
And
one of those.
right. No,
dumb little
but
things
even the
in
feeling of
podcasts.
like, hey, like Kat's in the room, and then I, just kind of got inspired, and like in the room, and all of a sudden it was like a note, and so then I was like, oh, I guess I'm really passionate about this story. And also, Kim is Superwoman, and I always tell her that she is. However, it is very hard to direct yourself.
Oh,
yeah.
It's really hard to direct. So I think I was almost there for that. I remember even telling Kim, like, you can direct everyone else, but like, I'm here to direct you, because it's really hard to like be in a scene with someone and like act upon someone and then being like, especially for an audio drama, and then being like, did I sound correct? What was my direction? Like that's really difficult for anyone. So I remember really wanting to be there for her in that capacity, to be like, oh, I know that you want, Louisa to sound, I'm making something up, but anxious here, and like you didn't. But that was because you were just like worrying about the other person's performance. So
I definitely was like, Kat, you need to be here. Because yes, I think like I was like, I'm not sure if I know what I'm doing. I know you were teaching and you were directing for youth, and I was like, okay, well, would you be interested in doing this? And then I saw her and Charles in the room for our pilot, because we recorded the pilot in 2021 because we were like, oh, we want it to go out with the Kickstarter. If we're going to beg people for money, we want to show what we can do. And when we were in the room, I saw them together. I was like, that's it. That's it. That's the one. Those are two. Those are it. It was amazing watching Kat work and direct the actors. I know we'll get to Charles too, but like the fact that like I would literally catch them looking at each other and going, they were always on the same page, and I was like, this is it. This is the team.
This is my
So
team.
like, I think it was like a no-brainer for me from day one.
it came really naturally. I will say that.
Yeah.
So like in the room, it felt really natural. And I had like just met Charles, I believe.
Yeah,
like,
I think it was like that morning.
that day.
Right. And so, but I think that there was just moments where I would be like, oh, like, let's take that again. Or like, I would like even just look at Charles and be like, and we're going, like, I wouldn't even, there would even be, it would just like, we would be able to like talk without, you know, we just talk with our eyes, which was really great too. It was very comfortable and it felt like a machine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great when it was like the lines were delivered just perfectly, like beyond what we could have expected. Like we always just locked eyes, like real wide eyed, like, okay, that's it. Was that it?
Yeah.
I love it.
And we are going to dive deeper into the two specific roles you both played in the production of this. But it clearly sounds like you captured lightning in a bottle. And also, I hate to say I did not include this at the beginning, but you played Louisa.
Oh,
You're not
yeah.
just the series creator. You're
Yeah,
also
the
the main
star.
character. Yeah. And I'm so happy you said that, Kat, because having done performance myself, it is so hard to direct yourself.
Yeah.
It is so hard. It's so hard to be objective in that way. And I love that you came in to offer Kim that support, and then it expanded to pulling out some really incredible performances from other actors that we're going to talk about in a little bit. Charles, I want to hear how you got involved in the project. So you also live in Alaska too.
I do. I was
here
living in Los Angeles at the time.
Yes.
Yes, you were.
in all
So
fairness.
how did you come aboard, and what about the project got you really excited?
Well, Kim and I were. I don't think the ride had even shot yet at that point, right?
No, it did.
It
So,
shot,
yeah,
but
so
my part of it hadn't started
you
yet.
hadn't started yet.
Yeah.
The Ride is another amazing project by Kim. That is a beautiful short story.
I've rewatched it every few months. It's
really,
good.
really
It's still really good. I got pulled onto that with her, and she reached out separately and was like, "Hey, I have this other project. I'm not totally sure what it is, but it's like an audio drama podcast. Would you be interested in working on it?" And then I read through the script like in one sitting and was like, "Oh, this is amazing." I connected with your script through like my own parents' loss and stuff, and I think I called you like the next day and was like, "Yes, I want to do this. This is awesome."
Yeah, that was pretty cool because again, I had no idea what the heck I was doing. Like I produced like some dumb sketch videos and that's pretty much it. Like this was like going to be a huge undertaking, and I was like, I'm pretty sure Christina Y.R. Lim, who is the director of The Ride, this short film, who knew Charles because they had worked together prior to, she was like, why don't you just ask Charles? Maybe he'd be interested, because I was like, oh yeah, I guess that's a good point. Like what would be the difference of sound design for film versus an audio project? But yeah, that ultimately is what spawned the conversation, and I was so glad that he came aboard.
I don't think any of us really knew It was kind of
No.
all of us just holding hands and jumping into the abyss, figuring it out.
That's actually the perfect way to put it.
And you guys had quite a few challenges actually throughout that production, which we are going to get to. Spoiler alert, lost tapes. But you and Kat both mentioned something that I really want to get to in this first episode. So Louisa's Asian American heritage comes through so clearly on the show, from her and Sherry's shared love of stinky tofu to Aunt Patty's reluctance to talk about Sherry's death. I'm curious for the two of you, how did it feel to develop a story that so closely mirrored elements of your own story and your own culture?
I think in the very beginning, Kat and I, especially as Kat, looked at first drafts of outlines, right? Where it was like nothing. It was just like dumb ramblings in a Google Doc. And I think it was really great to talk to her about your own upbringing, your own struggles. I feel like Babalu is truly, the whole story is like, Sherry is an amalgamation of all the different Asian American women in my life, and not just Asian American women, probably just a lot of people in my life, to be quite frank. She just so happens to be Asian American, but for me, I really wanted to talk about, I'm going to mention something that is kind of personal, but here's an example of what I wanted to address about with shame in Asian American culture, specifically with Babalu. I have a family member who has been gay since as long as I can remember and has had the same partner for as long as I can remember. But people in our family still refer to my family member's partner, long-term partner, decades now, as his friend. We all know what it is, and we all know and love him, and I know you're not treating him any differently. But that's just it's weird. It's weird stuff like that, where it's like, why? And I do understand why, but I wanted to address that. I grew up with stuff like that, and that's just one example. And I think for me, for Babalu, I will say that I wanted to write from my Vietnamese American heritage, which I eventually get to. But what happened during casting was a very interesting thing. So I initially set out to try to find a Vietnamese American actress to play Sherry. And I did. I found an amazing one. And she's so great that she's literally been living in the back of my mind ever since she read for me. And she will come back in season 2. At least I hope so. I haven't actually talked to her yet. But a preview, I'm going to be reaching out to you. But it really came down to Christine Liao, who does play Sherry, and this other person. And there was something so moody and dark about the way Christine's performance came through that I ultimately went in that direction, and I shifted Babalu to be more about Chinese American heritage. And then ultimately we find out that Sherry is actually of mixed race as well on the Asian side. She is Chinese Vietnamese. I wanted to explore that and just how complicated families can be, and it not be about it's about this Asian American complex family, but more so oh no, this is probably the same thing you see in your own family, regardless of what your background is. But my very long-winded way of saying I have really enjoyed being able to talk to Kat, talk to Christine, who are of Chinese descent, and go, hey, what are your favorite things? What are your favorite foods? Christine told me stinky tofu. That's where it came from. So I was like, done. Stinky tofu's in the script. Christine said to me, hey, I know how to hum this Chinese lullaby. And I said, done, in the script.
So that moment is beautiful.
Thank you. And it was because to me, it was really great to be collaborative with everybody, because I'm actually truly stealing from people in my life, because I'm just so inspired by the people in my life, and I don't ever see these stories being told in media. And I was like, who cares if her favorite food is stinky tofu and people don't know what that is? Maybe you'll go and try it because Sherry loved it so much, and now now you love stinky tofu. But that's my perspective. I wanted to make sure that I was Babalu to me is being colored in by the Asian American heritage, but it's not the outlines of it. It's not the skeleton of the show, right? It's not a show about you having to be Asian American. It's just so happens to be a show about a woman who happens to be Asian American and is going through these things, and her background obviously informs her experience.
100%. Kat, what about you?
It was a real gift to be able to be in the room with with Christine and Kim and like have three of us just be like, okay, we actually all, you know, have a very similar background and we have similar cultures, and there are things that overlap very, very much within our three childhoods and families, and things that can just be related to so beautifully, truly. I do think that our stories are getting better. However, I do still think that when you see this minority in particular on screen, you still see Asians as a sidekick. You still see Asians as the second story, the B plot. There's just not a lot of times that you see them as the lead, as the main family that we're following. And so for this story to be unapologetic about their Asian lead is pretty amazing. And I think it's really incredible for the next generation coming up. I think it helps people see themselves as a main character. I just think it's really important to keep talking about it.
You just made me think of two things. One, remember when it was me, you, and Christine in the room, and I think in the script we had, it's Sherry talking about Chinese New Year. And I grew up, even though I came from a Vietnamese family, we called it Chinese New Year. We didn't call it Lunar New Year. We didn't call it Vietnamese New Year. We called it Chinese New Year. But we still celebrated it. And I remember saying, like, fact-checking it against you and Christine in the room, being like, y'all say Chinese New Year? Like, do you guys say Chinese New Year? Because that would be crazy if I wrote something that you guys don't actually say and you confirmed it. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. But, like, the collaborative experience has been amazing. Also, what you just said about representation. So we had, like, a Zoom live listening session, right? Yeah. And fact check me on how this story came about. But we did, like, a little, like, last episode of the season Zoom party where we all listened to the episode together. And I was just so moved because we took comments afterwards, and someone, an Asian American woman, left a comment in the Zoom saying, "Hi, I'm an Asian American woman, and thank you for making this show. It is the first show where I actually felt like I related to an Asian American character." And I was like, wow, first show ever?
Right.
Like,
It's 2026.
I know, that's like, I was first of all, like, so touched by that, but second of all, like, it's so depressing to know that but she's right. Like, I can barely count on, like, one hand where I can where I can feel like I related to an Asian American character in mainstream media. And that was just so powerful to hear that. I still think about it to this day.
I will also say that I do think a little bit of a theme of Babalu is Sherry feeling othered. And I think that's a really big experience in being mixed or even being Asian, or, you know, I think we have come a long way, but I am going to tell a story from my mom. I mean, my mom, you know, is in her 70s, so not that long ago, but, you know, when she was in elementary school, you know, you had to check off the box of if you were white or black or other. Yeah. There was no Asian. Yeah. It was white, black, or other. Till this day, like, she'll be like, oh, I can't believe you get to, you know, check a box that doesn't say other, because that's all she could do. And so, and she felt othered. Like, I think Sherry a lot of the times feels othered in so many ways. So we talk about it being a single mom. We talk about it with her depression. We talk about with her sexual orientation. But then also, I think a time that we don't even talk about how she feels othered is, like, you know, where she works, like her bar and at school, and, you know, trying to, like, even think about those situations and that community of how she might feel either when she feels othered or when she feels brought into the community was really important to us as well. Talking about that, about, you know, who she's able to lock into that makes her feel seen, and when she doesn't feel seen at all. Yeah. And so I think that's really important part of the story as well.
Yeah, I so appreciate your guys' point of view on this. As someone who is not Asian American, who's very white, whitest person, maybe me and Charles could go head to head. But these characters were so relatable. They were so relatable, and that's because they were so rich. And I appreciate you guys putting so much effort into crafting those characters and sourcing material from your own lives and for the people around you, because I think that made for characters that I couldn't wait to tune into every week when the show was coming out. And I'm so happy you brought up Sherry. We're coming to almost the end of the first mini episode, but I want to get into Sherry. Sherry is such a deep character. It's clear she struggles with human connection, but she's so thoughtful. She is so kind, and like, she's such a, I just want to give her a hug. The scene in No Sleep where she describes what happened to the lizard gecko, wish you had told me that before I listened to that on my morning commute, because I was in tears. But I would love to hear the inspiration for Sherry. What did you pull from maybe someone in your life or a specific thing? Because Sherry really is like, she's just this force that just calls you in. And I would love to hear how we specifically developed her.
Sherry's truly an amalgamation of so many experiences, I think. And if there's like a very vivid memory, so I had a friend who unfortunately recently passed to colon cancer. Everybody go get your colon cancer screenings. It's very important. I met her through improv. We were in a musical improv class. Sweet Caroline, she was a Chinese American woman and born and raised in Queens, made her way to California. By the time I met her, she was in her 50s. And she would always joke like, oh, like, you know, I'm like your mother or whatever and what have you. But she showed up in an improv class. My first time meeting her, she shows up to this improv class and she's like, hi, I have cancer. I may have bad days, but I want to be here. And I hope that's okay. And everybody just rallied for her. And I was just like, holy shit, this woman's fucking amazing. I got to know her because, of course, through class. And our teacher was really great about saying like, hey, if you want to support Caroline in any ways, here are like ways that she, you know, could use your help. And she was like, oh, I wish someone would help me organize my medical bills. And I was like, I'm coming, because like I'm so good with dumb bureaucratic organizational shit from working in corporate America for so long. I was like, you need documents you need me to sort through, give it to me. So I literally would go over her house and I would sort her like invoices and her random like medical bills, and like I hooked her up with like a friend who did taxes, so like she could get her taxes filed so she could get some medical like forgiveness, like dumb bureaucratic stuff, right? But we got to know each other and she got me into romance novels, and she would tell me like funny stories about her upbringing. And I just remember having this very vivid vision. She didn't show me a photo or anything, but like this very vivid vision of her being a teenager in the 80s. She was born and raised here. She didn't have an accent. She loved like new wave music as well. She loved like the 80s pop music that was happening at the time. To her, she was just like a normal American kid. And to me, I was like, yes, I want to capture that. I want to capture this idea of like, of course we want to tell like immigrant stories. Of course we want to tell like people's stories or first generation. But I really wanted to touch upon the idea of an Asian American woman in the 80s who's just like, I don't feel like, who's also struggling with her own identity of like, oh yes, I am Chinese, but I also have this Vietnamese background that I don't really know that well because my mother left when I was young. But I also am an American because I've grown and lived here. I don't know any other experience, unlike Patty, who was born and raised in China and then came over as like a teenager. So like I wanted to really explore just this rad Asian American woman who unfortunately also has her struggles, and really capture like, quite frankly, a lot of the random thoughts I have sometimes when I'm like going around. Like I just have a Google Doc of like Sherry monologue ideas. I thank improv for teaching me this of like, don't ever throw away an idea. There's always a good idea. Anything can be explored. And so for me, I like get an idea, I pluck it, I put it into the Google Doc. And the lizard story specifically, I truly don't remember how that came about, but I think I was inspired because I went to Joshua Tree. I thought, like, where would someone go in the 80s? You want to get away. You're, like, going to Palm Springs. You're probably going to Joshua Tree. And the idea of Sherry and Deborah going with the babies, you know, for a night, just so that they can get away. I really wanted to explore, like, this loneliness of the desert. But they're together. I probably was watching some true crime stuff. Fun fact, I love true crime. Unlike Louisa, I'm very fascinated with missing persons cases. I'm very fascinated when someone goes missing in the desert. And I wanted to explore, like, what would that be like if you just stumbled upon this search party? I don't know about you guys, but I've certainly thought about, like, what happened to that person? Like, did they mean to do that? Was this on purpose? And then look at that event through the framework or through the mindset of Sherry, who has her struggles, who has a darkness within her. And ultimately, Sherry's really, truly just all these different experiences, my own thoughts, things that people have told me, like, I hope crafted into one character.
She's beautiful. Sherry's beautiful. And also the dichotomy between Patty and Sherry, of Patty being someone who grew up in China, right? And then Sherry growing up in the States, like the dichotomy between them, I couldn't get enough of it. And that concludes our first episode of Babalu B-Sides. Keep an eye on your feed for the next episode where we'll dive into the sound design of Babalu. Want to contribute directly to the show? Go to buymeacoffee.com/Babalu. 100% of the proceeds will go to creating the next installment of this incredible series.